The mineral deal is not enough on its own, but can I just remind him, Russia is the aggressor. Zelenskiy is a war leader whose country has been invaded. And we should all be supporting him and not fawning over Putin.
Do you want him back?
I haven't seen reports of the US withdrawing support for Ukraine, and as I understand, that is not their position. I thank him for his support on this issue, although I was somewhat concerned that the SNP is continuing its suggestion that now is the time to abandon the nuclear deterrent. If ever there was a time to reaffirm support for the nuclear deterrent, it is now. We mustn't reduce our security and defence. I think it is a completely wrong-headed decision they should reconsider.
Direct to it.
The US and the UK have the closest of relationships. Our defence, our security, our intelligence are completely intertwined. No two countries are as close as our two countries, and it'd be a huge mistake at a time like this to suggest that any weakening of that link is the way forward for security and defence in Europe. Well, I thank him for the unity across the House, and he's absolutely right. It sends a message to those who want to challenge our values when they see this House united on either Ukraine or on defence spending, and we have to face this era with confidence and with unity across this House wherever we can. I'd invite him. It's been good to have him agreeing with me. We should do this more often.
Can I note with great appreciation the order for Palace in Belfast?
Yes.
With Europe collectively being a long way short of self-sufficiency in defence, and with Putin more than likely to seek to exploit that deficiency, do the security guarantees that are required from the US effectively equate to those that would arise under Article 5 of NATO? Is that the order of what we're talking about?
Prime Minister.
Look, NATO membership is a form of guarantee. Article 5 is a form of guarantee. I think there are different ways in which the guarantee can be put in place. But what is important is that they are effective and that those in Europe that are leading on this do it in conjunction with the US so that Putin knows the severe risk that he takes if he breaches any deal that may be arrived at.
Nadia Whittam.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I also want to commend the Prime Minister for the way that he received President Zelenskiy after the disgraceful bully boy tactics from President Trump and Vice President Vance, and for his continued support for Ukraine. As the Ukraine Solidarity campaign highlighted, increased military spending overall is not necessarily the same as increased military aid to Ukraine. Can the Prime Minister set out how much of this increased military spending will specifically be used to re-equip Ukraine? And is he not concerned that cutting the international aid budget risks both increasing global instability and undermining support for Ukraine, both here at home and internationally?
Prime Minister.
Well, we're stepping up our support for Ukraine, both in military aid and in other ways. In relation to the decision that I had to take last week, the security and safety and defence of Europe has to come first, but I'm absolutely committed to doing what we can to increasing the aid and development that we're able to provide, which is why I'll look at the priorities and work with others on other ways to leverage the support that we might be able to put in place.
Sir Alex Shelbrooke.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. May I also congratulate the Prime Minister on the leadership he's shown this weekend. It is in the best traditions of British Prime Ministers dealing with the United States, dealing with Europe, notably also when we were in the EU we were able to do that. But can I press the Prime Minister on coming up the Hague summit for NATO leaders in June, where when the Honourable Member for Widnes and Howard and I were at the North Atlantic Council in the February recess, it was made clear that they would bring forward the plans that would be needed to defend Europe. And so can I ask that he uses his leadership, that if we suddenly have to spend more money, he's in a position where he'll keep an open mind on that so he can persuade all the other leaders they also have to do that.
Prime Minister.
Well, I thank him for that, and one of the principles I've held in mind over recent days in particular is making sure that what we do is coordinated with NATO, as it must be. We are deployed in different countries, as he knows, already, and that's why I'm in such close contact with the Secretary-General, Mark Rutte, on a near constant basis.
Graham Downey.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I thank the Prime Minister for his statement and indeed his stamina in all of the meetings over the weekend, not the least for coming to this House for an extra hour and a half and counting this afternoon to keep this House informed. As with other members from across the House, I took part in the trip to Ukraine for the 3rd anniversary last week. Does the Prime Minister agree with me that while the cross-party consensus on Ukraine is welcome, including from the SNP, does he agree with me that the SNP Scottish Government must take action to support businesses in Scotland to make sure that they can benefit from the increase in defence spending and is able to continue to contribute to the security of the United Kingdom and our allies in Ukraine?
Prime Minister.
Well, I agree with that principle. I do think that the increase in defence spending is a duty, but also an opportunity across the United Kingdom for good, well-paid, skilled jobs in many businesses.
Richard Ford.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. It is very welcome to hear the Prime Minister acknowledge the contribution of Canada to Ukraine's self-defence and its status as a vital ally for the UK. Last week, the Prime Minister was asked in the US by the press about President Trump's repeated calls for Canada to become a state within the US. The PM answered that he and Trump didn't address that issue, didn't address Canada. Yet, wasn't this meeting a good opportunity to remind President Trump about sovereignty, independence, including that of Canada?
Sir.
Yes, but it's a serious point. In the time we had available, I was most anxious to discuss the question of security guarantees, and that's why I devoted the vast amount of time I had there. But on the question of Canada, I think we should be absolutely clear. Canada is a vital ally to the United Kingdom, to the Commonwealth, and has played a leading part in relation to Ukraine, not least on the vital training that they have provided. And we should be very proud of what the Canadians have done.